Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of Born in Quarantine. I think it's time we talk about yet another video game, and this one, much like the last time we talked about them, has brought me many good memories when I was a child and has brought me many hours of fun in the quarantine. Last time we went medieval. This time let's go mythological. Yes, today we are going to talk about Age of Mythology. Yes, I've let my hair down. I think I look more, historic this way. And it kind of reminds me of Ajax from the game too. Although I know it's a lion pelt. He's not long haired really. Also, again, no Batman mark. Counting the last two episodes, this is the third episode without a Batman mark, but we'll do a special one for him. I realized my medieval mark actually works good as a mythological mark also. You wouldn't know this from looking at me, but I used to be a huge history nerd. When I was smaller, history used to be one of the main subjects that I actually went and studied with passion. Alongside that, I had a passion for mythology, specifically Greek mythology. It's actually my favorite pantheon. I know a lot of people like Norse, but sorry, I'm a Greek guy to the end because it is a lot funnier. And I mean it, Greek mythology it's like a over the top and yet fantastical soap opera. People are lying to each other, they are cheating on each other. You have characters that you realize were sons of other characters. It's just magnificent. My love of mythology and Greek mythology actually came from playing Age of Mythology. When I was smaller, like 9-10 years old, there were a lot of games that I used to play, and almost all of them were RTS, real-time strategy games. Stronghold was one of them, which we already talked about. Warcraft used to be one of them, which I loved. And Age of Empires used to be one of them. But believe it or not, I didn't know we had an Age of Empires until I was 11. To me, that sort of RTS game was Age of Mythology. I remember when I played Age of Mythology, back then I didn't even know it had an expansion. It had an expansion by then, Titans, which we talk about, but I didn't know it had an expansion back then. All I remember is putting the disc into my computer and that amazing graphic popping up, and it just felt epic, like I was playing something big. And then the game started, and honestly, after all these years, I have to say it still holds up. Now, for those of you who might not know, Age of Empires is a very big franchise of RTS games, and Age of Empires 2 was like a landmark in the franchise. It was so big and so fruitful. Everybody loved it, and recently it got a HD remaster, and everybody loved the HD remaster. Some would say more than Age of Empires 3, which I think is preposterous because Age of Empires 3 has one of the best campaigns ever, so play that, people. It's a good campaign. But Age of Empires 2 was big, and I mean big. Then came sort of an offshoot of it called Age of Mythology. It's based on the same engine, I think. It looks the same, it behaves the same, it has the same features, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. Age of Mythology is certainly unique. And how is it unique? Well, let's explore it. The biggest draw in of Age of Mythology for everyone I want to recommend the game to is the campaign. The campaign is amazing, and I do mean amazing. I truly love this campaign. It is a bit long. It has, I think, over 30 chapters, and that's just the main campaign because when the game came out, there was this sort of 4 or 5 chapter add on called The Golden Gift, and the main campaign is long, but by God, do you get invested in it. Now you have to realize strategy games campaigns, they are like the icing on the cake. The core thing is the mechanics, it's the AI, it's the strategy part. But when you have a good campaign to go on top of that, it's like an extra layer of deliciousness. And in Age of Mythology, the icing is as thick as the cake itself. It is so good. And I mean so good. They bring these different pantheons. For those of you who don't know, there are 3 main pantheons throughout the game. 4 if you add the Titans expansion, and 5 if you add the Tales of Dragon, which I will talk about. But the 3 main ones, which is my main focus here, are Greek, Egypt, and Norse. You play as this Greek character from the lost city of Atlantis called Arkantos, and you go through a journey that brings you to Egypt and then brings you to the North Empire. And each of these regions have their own pantheon, have their own god, and actually have their own gameplay mechanics. Now let's talk about each of them separately. The Greeks, as you would have guessed, you have 3 main gods. These are the gods that you worship, and to each of them you have sort of a tree that you can use other gods' powers. Because remember, it was sort of an add-on or a sequel to Age of Empires, and Age of Empires has different ages. So Age of Mythology has different ages, and through each age you get to choose one of 2 gods. The 3 main Greek gods are Poseidon, Hades, and Zeus. The Egyptian pantheon has Ra, Isis, the goddess, not the other one, and Set. And the Norse pantheon has Odin, Loki, and Thor. Now each of these factions, aside from different pantheons, have different gameplay mechanics as well. The Greek is the base one. You sort of remember it from Age of Empires. The villagers build stuff and gather resources, and the soldiers fight, with the add-on that if you build a temple and have your villagers sort of worship it, you will get prayer points. And through prayer points, you get to have mythological creatures like Pegasus or centaurs or cyclopses and colossuses, and it's so good. It's so fun, you know. It's like Age of Empires but with mythical creatures. And they have a building that you place down and gathers wood and gold. Your villagers can bring it to that building, and they have one for the granary that only accepts food. And in the Greek campaign, or the Greek section of the campaign, you mostly have no ways of regaining health if you are not a hero. There is a power by one of the gods, but aside from that, not really a way to gain health. But when you go to Egypt, you have pharaohs and priests who bring the character's health back up. So it's an add-on to the Greek thing. The Egyptian villagers also do all of that, but there are 3 buildings, one for food, one for mining, and one for wood. So if you want to, gather gold, you need to put a mining camp. If you want to gather wood, you need to put a forestry camp. And you can't interchange these.
The Egyptians gain favor by building monuments.
But the game sort of takes a huge turn when it comes to the Norse. In the Norse Empire, your villagers are 2 groups. You're either a tall villager or a dwarf. Dwarf gather gold better than other villagers, but gather wood and food worse. The tall villagers, the human villagers, do the opposite. And your villagers can build farms, but nothing more. You may ask, who builds the buildings then?
All Norse buildings are constructed or repaired by infantry units.
Also, there is no building for your villagers to, well, bring their gathered supplies to. You can't build a camp and make the distance shorter. You have a cart, and this cart is a unit. It's movable, and your villagers bring the goods to it. It's a whole new gameplay mechanic, and I love each section. Now, as I mentioned, there are two add-ons to the game. One is the Titans DLC, which came out a year after. It added Titans and a new faction called Atlantean, which instead of worshipping gods, worshipped Titans, Gaia, Uranus, and Kronos. Then in 2016 came the Tale of Dragons, which I have to be honest, I did not reach. Mainly because I played the first mission and I realized I did not like the faction. Not that it felt like a deviation from the original game, but I don't know, for some reason it felt too busy. I might finish it, and if I do, this video will be the first one to get a add-on episode, sort of a DLC episode. But they also have three gods which I will not pretend to know how to pronounce. I'm not sure I even pronounced the Egyptian, Greek, and Norse gods correctly, let alone the Chinese ones, but yeah. But this is the whole gameplay. You know, you have different mechanics, and it's the usual RTS. Your villagers gather wood, and it's the sort of RTS where you have to count for the distance when the villager needs to walk from a fallen tree to a place where they can gather. And it's one of those resource things that, you know, the gold mines deplete after a while and the trees deplete after a while. I know it's standard for games, but after playing so much like Civ and Rome Total War, I'm not used to resources depleting after a while. And you build stuff and you build an army. There is this thing though that I think I need to mention. I love the gameplay, but the AI. Not the AI in the sense that you're enemy, but the AI implemented in your own troops that need to follow orders, they are a little bit dumb. Now, when I compare Age of Mythology to a game that came out around the same time, a Stronghold, there is this thing. In a Stronghold, when you tell your troops to go somewhere and they realize there is an enemy on the way, they attack the enemy as they're going. And no such thing happens in the Age of Mythology. Your troops will go straight, attack that one enemy which you told them to attack, and then this person kill all the rest. So you have these somewhat funny moments where your hero, which needs to activate his power, needs to go around all of the troops attacking this person to activate the power. So it is kind of funny, but it can be frustrating because, you know, sometimes the difference between a perfect game is that 1 second where the troops are not doing what they're supposed to do. With that said though, let's talk about the campaign. Before I played the game in the quarantine, I played it like 2 or 3 years ago. More than that, probably 4 or 5 years ago. When I first got my laptop, one of the first games I installed on it was Age of Mythology. Oh no, it must have been 4 years ago because the one I got was The Tale of Dragon, which came out in 2016. But before that, the last time I played the game was when I was 10, so around 2007. Yet, in the 8-9 years in between, I remembered almost everything about this campaign. The story is like this. Hello, Future Ali here from the editing room. I just wanted to mention that I do spoil the whole story of the game and the Titans DLC. And even though I do believe that it doesn't matter in the end and you can still enjoy the game, if you don't want to get spoiled and want to have a fresh perspective to the story, go to this time code that appears on the screen. Thank you. There is this character called Arcantos, and he's an Atlantean. And one day, a pirate by the name of Camos comes and steals the trident of Poseidon, which is the patron god of Atlantis. The Atlantean theocrat, a man by the name of Creus, which will play a bigger part later on, tells Arcantos that it is because Poseidon wants the Atlanteans to go and join the Trojan War, which Arcantos sort of not in favor of. So Arcantos sees it as a sign, goes to the Trojan War. You have a bunch of missions in the Trojan War. There he meets Ajax, my favorite character.
A horse, yes. A great wooden horse. I don't understand. Will it fight?
I love the character in Age of Mythology, and then when I read Greek mythology more and I learned who Ajax was, I loved him even more. Then the Trojan War ends, and Arcantos realizes there is something bigger going on. Then we meet this other character called Gargarensis, a cyclops that I was heartbroken when I realized he didn't appear in the actual Greek mythologies. It was a character from the game only.
They rush in red and purple, from the red clouds of the morn, from the temples where the yellow gods shut up their eyes in scorn.
Gargarensis is a cyclops that apparently wants to free Kronos. Now, Arcantos, to stop Gargarensis, goes to the underworld with Ajax and another character by the name of Chiron, who is a centaur and has a very warm voice and is a sort of a sweet guy.
I've walked this road many times. I've never seen this before, however.
They go to the underworld, and we have a very amazing chapter in the underworld, which I love. And then they go out in Egypt. There they meet this Nubian heroine called Amanra.
This oasis holds treasures beyond water. A relic is buried here. My enemies are on their way to try to take it.
And there they realize that apparently Set, the evil god of Egyptians, apparently, has hidden the pieces of Osiris and is trying to help Gargarensis free Kronos. Don't ask me why and why these mythological creatures sort of work together and apparently occupy the same realm. It doesn't make sense if you look at it with that precision. It sort of falls apart, but aside from that, it's a good story, believe me. So the enemy of Amanra is this character called Kemsit, who is not very interesting. He does one interesting thing, which we'll get to. So in the Egypt, Arcantos, Chiron, Ajax, and Amanra, they gather the pieces of Osiris, and in that sort of way, Chiron meets a bunch of Norsemen who are there apparently on the orders of a Valkyrie to, well, stop the Ragnarok. So the end is they put the pieces of Osiris together, Osiris rises again, and the Gargarensis plans are foiled. But he runs to the north. So Arcantos and the company, I'm not going to name all of them, go to the north, but in the way they take a detour and they meet Circe, who is the enchantress that turned people into pig, if you read Homer's Odyssey. So they go to the north, and there they are fooled by this character called Skuld, which we later realize it's actually Loki, and Loki is also helping Gargarensis to open up the gates of Tartarus and lets out Kronos. You know, when you tell the story of this game out loud, it sounds very stupid, but believe me, in the game it works, and it works really good. There they manage to stop him, and they lose a very good friend.
Chiron!
Now remember what I said. Having a campaign is like a cherry on top. It's icing on the cake. To this day, I feel sad when I think about Chiron and how he died. That's the power of this strategic campaign. I actually felt it again when I played it through the quarantine. I felt it again when I played it to get this footage. There they realized that Loki has broken the hammer of Thor and they need to reassemble it with the help of two dwarves, Brook and Etiri, and they do. Thor closes the gates of Tartarus. Then they defeat Garagarensis and cut his head off.
This is for Chiron.
And yes, they do cut his head off. But they go back to Atlantis and in the middle of the way realize that the character they killed was actually Kemsit, disguised by Loki to appear as Garagarensis. But well, they go to Atlantis and realize that Poseidon had been lying to them all this while and he actually wants to bring back Kronos, and the last gate to Tartarus is actually in Atlantis. There you go to the last mission, which is an amazing mission and very, very well built, to be honest. You have an Egyptian settlement and a Norse settlement by you, and they help you, and it feels like this big collaborative thing that you are all helping, and everyone you met in their way are here to help you sort of get to this mission. It's fun. It's like that big showdown at the end. And Arkantos, through the might of Zeus, defeats Poseidon, kills Garagarensis, and ascends to godhood, and Atlantis sinks. That's the main story. Now in the Titans, they pick up the story after that. You play as Arkantos' son Castor. That Furycrat, which I said played a big part, becomes a sort of a messenger of Kronos. Kronos comes out in this one and, well, he gets defeated by Gaia. There is also this thing in Age of Mythology Titans. I played it very recently. I didn't play it when it came out. And I didn't play it the first time I was playing it. I played it in 2016, as I said. So it was a long while for me. And in the Titans expansion, you see Ajax and Amon-Ra as the older versions.
Be quiet back there.
Amon-Ra, what are you doing here?
So yeah, that long campaign with so many twists and turns and different stages and different sort of gameplay mechanics and different quests, different missions. It's just amazing and I really love it. I remember it well too. And I sometimes actually replay some of my favorite missions, like the Underworld mission. There is a dream mission that Arkantos goes into his dream where Athena tells him about Garagarensis' plans. I love the final showdown. I just replay them. And Age of Mythology is actually one of those games that I play campaign missions as much as I play normal games. The normal matches are also kind of fun depending on who you pick and all that stuff. Then there is the map editor, which is another sort of thing. I love the map editor. I had a lot of fun designing like my own settlements in them. Sort of like the beginning mission, you have Atlantis, which is a beautiful, well, piece of map. And I sort of like designing my own stuff, which is fun. And the game lets you, it gives you everything it uses. And that's the thing about cinematics too. They are actually not pre-rendered stuff. They are using the same stuff you have in the map editor. So sometimes they are actually showing you like gameplay, which brings some other funny stuff, like Arkantos is supposed to walk this place, but in the last scene he's dead because he's actually part of the attack scene that is happening. With that said though, let's sort of bring it to a close. In my opinion, the game still holds up. The gameplay is still as fun as I remember. The graphics are still good. The campaign, amazing. And everything in it just brings back joy. And not in a way that Stronghold does. When I play Stronghold, part of it is nostalgia. part of it is actually experiencing the game again and loving it. In Age of Mythology, I don't think I have much nostalgia left. All the things that I love about the game are the things that I re-experienced and loved again. It's a great game. It's a great game and I highly recommend it, especially in the lockdown. You have time to go through the long campaign and actually experience it for yourself. I've told you the story with all of the spoilers, but I don't think it matters that much. It still will feel good to just experience this stuff. And you get to know these characters. As I said, I love Ajax, I love Amon-Ra. As for Titans, I am still on fence on that. It is a good expansion. It's a good DLC. I mean, it adds a new faction, it adds a whole new story, it adds new mechanics, it adds new enemies. But I don't like the story as much as I like the main game story, mainly because I don't like Castor as much as I like Arkantos. I think Arkantos is more interesting than his son. So yeah, that's the whole thing. And I hope I actually made you want to play this game and I didn't ruin it for you. Again, if you like RTS games, definitely give it a chance. I'm actually playing a new game right now that I never played before, Crusader Kings 2, which, I mean, I've seen gameplay footage and it looks so good and I've had like 2 hours in it and it actually is a good game. And during the lockdown, I thought, why not? Let's give it a chance, and I'm so happy. So I hope you do the same thing for Age of Mythology. Give this game a chance. Even if it's your first RTS, I think it's a good foray into RTSs. It doesn't have like those crazy mechanics that Stronghold has, or the crazy stuff that even Crusader Kings has. I think it's a good first step. So yeah, if that worked, if this worked, and if that, my computer worked, I'll see you again next week.